I'm Gloria McCahill. I'm an Eden Energy Medicine practitioner and teacher, but I also incorporate a lot of other modalities that I've studied over the years, as well as some things that I've come up with on my own to try to help people in a variety of ways. So today we're going to be talking about the sense of touch. But Pal brought up something very interesting when she talked about color and crayons, because that's actually something that people don't think of as a touch, but it is, because I had one of my sons actually felt color. So that's a very interesting thing. I remember I wanted to get him to paint a room a color one time, and he told me that certain color blue was very painful to him. And that was when I first got an inkling that just like I feel sound, I just don't hear sound, but some people feel color as well. So anyway, I just wanted to address that when she brought that up, because I thought that was interesting. So I'd like to start out with a quote, because I was going through researching a couple of things on the sense of touch, and I really came across this quote, and I thought it was beautiful. Touch was never meant to be a luxury. It is a basic human need. It is an action that validates life and gives hope to both the receiver and the giver. And that's by Irene Smith. And I just thought it was a really good start to what we're going to be talking about today. So the first thing I'd like to do is just go into an overall description. Livescience.com gives the following definition for the sense of touch. Touch consists of several distinct sensations communicated to the brain through specialized neurons to the skin. Pressure, temperature, light touch, vibration, pain, and other sensations are all part of the touch sense and are all attributed to different receptors in the skin. As Hope said earlier, the skin is the largest organ of the body. And I know some of you might have seen my clip, so you might already know this, but I thought it was really interesting that there are approximately 17,000 mechanoreceptors. These are receptors that respond to the sensations of touch. And these reside in each human hand, with the majority being clustered in the fingertips. So I thought that was really amazing. I had no idea that there was that much there. And it is thought that touch is the first sense that we as humans develop. And that's according to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. And, I was thinking about the sense of touch and what Hope was talking about. And, first I was thinking of fabric. I like silk, but I also remember the wonderful touch with my first child, when he snuggled his face up to my cheek, and I could just feel that softness and that warmth there, or when he grabbed my fingers for the first time. And it was a very pleasant, wonderful sensation. It just filled my entire body. But then I also remember that during my bout with fibromyalgia, that if someone touched my skin, it was very painful. And it was not a pleasant touch. I was miserable for the rest of the day. So very, very different types of touch. Now, I also remembered working with a client that was in and out of a coma and paralyzed. And I recall the first time that he moved, he slowly lifted his arm up and grabbed my thumb. And that was the most amazing feeling I think I've ever felt in my entire life. That simple touch flooded the entire body and lasted for hours. And I'm not really quite sure why that was, other than maybe because he was between worlds. But it was something I will never forget for the rest of my life. Now, another type of touch, which I'm going to talk about the same person again, he had a brain bleed. And when I first went in to work with him, I do energy work. And so I was trying to get near his head to work with the energy surrounding his head. And I hit a wall. I actually felt as if my hand came up and hit a wall. And that was the first time I had ever felt that. That was his body's intelligence telling me it wasn't ready for me to work with it. I could work with the rest of the body, but not the head. But that was the first time I actually felt a very solid, what I call subtle body touch. It's a subtle energy body touch, I guess I would say. So it's not something that's talked about a lot, but I do think it's something that people should be aware of, so that if you ever have that experience, you know what it is. I've also worked with children that were autistic, as well as some that were developmentally delayed, and they feel touch very differently. The autistic children especially could feel touch several feet away. I had a young boy that was on a table, and I started to come towards him, and he said, "Oh, that tickles." And I was surprised, that that was a odd type sensation or feeling for him to get from me from so far away. And yet I had a similar experience with a developmentally delayed young girl, where she was standing in my office and I went to go towards her to test her energy. And I was about a foot away from her body, and she broke out hysterically laughing. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Oh, that really tickles." So I, at the time, used an object, which I'm going to talk about objects on Friday. But I used an object on her body, and then I was able to actually go in and put my hand on her body to actually physically touch her. So again, very different forms of touch, things that we have to remember when we talk about touch, of how people feel it in so many different ways. So I encourage all of you to start becoming aware of what you feel, where you feel it, and how it feels, and really begin to notice. I think we take a lot of things for granted, and this is one that's something we don't necessarily pay a lot of attention to, because, as Hope said, we're touching all day long. I mean, it's just, we're touching utensils, we're touching our body, we touch our clothes, and it's just not something we really get in touch with unless we pay attention to it. Now, we talked about pets a little bit. People like touching their pets, and I came across an article in the Ann Arbor News, and I just want to read what it said. It said, "Pets are another way that we receive and give touch. One study showed an increase in immune functioning in college students just from having them pet a dog for 18 minutes. Touching animals has been associated with better mood, healthier interpersonal interactions, reduced stress, reduced fear and anxiety, and improved cardiovascular health." So it may feel really awesome to touch the little furry bodies that they have, but the next time that you do touch them, I'd like you to really go into it thinking of it as a very healing touch as well, not only from the pet to you, but from you to the pet as well. And really notice, like, when you pet your dog or cat or whatever animal you have, does it register just in your hand, or can you start to notice, are you feeling it somewhere else in your body? Some people, if they touch someone, will get a chill through their body, or they'll kind of just feel like somebody gave them a hug. So notice that, when you are playing or stroking your pet. So besides the fact that we have touch sensory nerve fibers, the skin also contains thermosensory fibers that have receptor endings that are very sensitive to temperature. So some fibers respond to warmth and others respond to cold. So if we touch our lips to a warm cup of tea or coffee, our lips, from touching that, pick up that sense of warmth or heat. And the same thing occurs if we have a glass with ice cubes or it's cold. our lips touch that, and all of a sudden it's registered as this is cold or refreshing. Also, I've placed my hands over somebody's face when I'm doing energy work, and they will feel heat that comes from my hand onto their face. So that feeling of heat touches their face. Again, a subtle type of energy. So now we're going to do a little experience using our fingers. And I'm going to first demonstrate it, and then we're all going to do it together. So I want you to just watch me first, okay? It's very slow, and it's going to be light as a feather, okay? So this is what you're going to do. Just don't do it yet. You're going to take your thumb and lightly, lightly, very slowly stroke up the sides of your fingers. And it's got to be the lightest touch. And this is the pace that you're going to go at. And then you're going to come around the pad and then slide down the inside of that finger. And then you will come to the webbing and repeat up through each finger until we end at the baby finger. Now, when you do this, I would like you to close your eyes. That's why I wanted to show it to you first. I'll lead you through it so that you go through the same pace that I do. And I'd like you to try to pay attention to what you are feeling when you do it. You're going to notice the lightness and the featheriness of the touch, but then are you feeling it more in one finger than another? Do you feel it more near the pad of the finger or on the side of the finger? And does it resonate anywhere in your body? Do you get a slight chill or a tingly feeling, anything like that? So we're going to do it on the right hand, and then we're going to do the same thing on the left hand to see if you feel a difference. So let's start. And again, close your eyes because I'll guide you through it. So slowly take your thumb, and remember it's as light as a feather and very slow, that I'm creeping and gliding. Another form of touch, I'm gliding up the side of the finger. And I'm only about halfway right now. Very light. You're up by the pad or the tip of the finger now. And then we're descending down the side. And we're just about at the webbing. And now I'm coming up towards the middle finger. I'm coming up the side of that middle finger. Keep your stroke very light and feathery because we tend to get heavier as we do this. Very, very lightly. And you're just about reaching the tip of that finger around the pad. And we're now sliding down the side. And now you'll be coming up the inside of, on the side of that fourth finger. Very lightly. Notice if one finger feels different from another. And slide up. We're just at the tip. Come back down the side now. Very slowly. And now we're going to go up the baby finger. We're on the inside. Up by the pad. And now down and slide around the outside. Okay, now just take a moment to jot down, or if you want to put it in the chat, what did you notice? Did you feel anything different? And if you didn't, that's okay. I would encourage you to repeat the exercise again when you can, really get into it and pay attention to it. And once you jot that down, we're going to do it on the same thing on the other hand now. So we want to see, does one hand feel different? Is a finger different from one hand to the other? Okay, so we're going to start. Slide that thumb, light as a feather, slowly up the side of that pointer finger, coming all the way up, around the pads. Make sure your eyes are closed so you can go within. Coming down the side of that finger. Now come up on the middle finger. Very, very lightly, barely touching. Around the tip. And now down the side. Very slowly. Now coming up the fourth finger, side of it. And now down the side. Now up the side of the baby finger, very lightly. Around the pad. And down the side. Okay, let's check in. Hope, I'm just curious if anybody did feel anything with that, whether it was rough, soft, pleasant, tingly.
I haven't seen anything in the chat yet. You can feel free to unmute yourselves to share too. Oh, Rebecca has her hand up. Go ahead, Rebecca.
I only see myself, so I can't see.
Share here.
Definitely noticed a difference between the sensitivity of some of my fingers. I feel like my index fingers were the least sensitive, and then maybe more toward the outside fingers. And at first I got goosebumps on my legs when I just did the very first initial touch on the right side. But then through the right hand, I got a really warm sensation in the my upper back, like between my shoulder blades, a little bit to the right side. And then that stayed. And then when I did the left side, I also had that sensation on the left side, but now I can still feel it together, like there.
That's wonderful, Rebecca. I'm so happy to hear that. People don't realize, but we have energy pathways that run through all of the fingers. And so each of them works with different emotions and different feelings in the body. And so there's a lot that we can do with our hands and our fingers. But thank you for sharing that. That was wonderful.
Annie, you have your hand up. Would you like to share something?
Sí, en mi caso.
Yes, in my case, I also felt like little shivers, tingling, but I also felt the texture of my fingers and my fingerprints. And as I was moving on from one finger to another, I could feel it more. Those fingerprints were more touchable to me.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Thank you.
And I'm just translating a few of the things that were put in chat. Nori said that it felt soft. And then Mafair said it felt tingly, soft, and soothing.
Wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that. Okay, well, now we're going to do another one. So now you're going to take your thumb and just stroke it across the underneath the fingers, side to side. And then you're going to take your finger and just glide it straight up vertically, each finger, again with the lightest touch. And then you're going to come back down again. And we do that on each finger. And just see how that feels to you. Whether you feel more going up or going down. And again, it's got to be the lightest touch to really feel it. And then you'll repeat the same thing on the other side with taking the thumb and coming back and forth. And then coming straight up. You're by the pad. And then coming down. And just again, noticing whether you feel more one direction as opposed to another. Or if you feel it somewhere in your body. These are very simple ways that can be self-soothing as well, once you learn to work with this. All right, and it's just to take notice and see how you feel doing that as well. And so these are little things that you can play around with and just see how it goes. And I'm going to be showing you something else when I finish up with a little bit more of the touch sensations. So another area that we have is the tongue. We taste with it, but we also touch with it. So when you eat your food, you are touching that food with your tongue and you're sensing the different textures of the food. In my work, I will have someone touch the roof of their mouth with their tongue, like this at the top. And what that does is it creates an energetic hookup. We actually have a central line of energy that comes up the front of the body. And we have one that comes up the back of the body. And the two meet at the back of the throat. So when you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, you are connecting those two. And it is considered to be your energetic spine. It is a way that can be calming. It can also help with balance. And it's also been known, let's see, what's the other thing? If you feel disconnected, it's connecting you. So it's kind of known as a microcosmic orbit, okay? So another way of touching, but you can create a lot of change in your body with that. If somebody is not familiar from the term meridian, by the way, it means an energy transportation system. It's a line of energy that delivers energy to the organ or the system that it's named for. So just in case you're not familiar with that term, I just wanted to let you know that. Now, another way to touch is with your mouth. Of course, we all know that if you kiss someone, you know how that feels. But we also touch our lips together when we hum. And you are creating a vibration. Now, vibration, just from that simple touch, some of these vibrations can actually clear your sinuses. So you could make a sound, with the M sound, okay, and that actually helps to open up the cranial area and the sinuses. So it's a really good thing to do, but it's also another way to touch, not one that we think about when we hum or we sing. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was, so when you're getting in touch with yourself, if you pat yourself, or you tap, or you rub, or you hold just simply lovingly, or if you're angry and you put that firm touch, notice again how it's resonating in your body, okay? Because if it's a rough, unpleasant touch, it's going to lock everything in your body. It's going to affect your muscles and your joints. Whereas if you have something that's very soothing and pleasant, it's going to help you relax. Okay, so we definitely don't want to tighten up anything else that we don't need to tighten up. So loosening, and that's why pets feel so good when we stroke their fur, or different fabrics feel really good. So now this last exercise that I want to show you, This is a technique that's called, it's a centering and grounding exercise. It's using your fingers. I learned this from Melanie Smith, who is one of our Eden Energy Medicine faculty members, and she learned it many years ago. It's called jumper cables from Jin Shin Jitsu. This was brought over to the United States by Alice Burmeister, who brought it here from Japan. Now, everybody has different abilities or challenges. And so if you can reach both hands, I encourage you to do this with both hands. If you have someone that's with you that can do it for you, that would be great. Or I've come up with my own technique on this to use with one hand. So I'm going to demonstrate both, and you can see how it feels for you, okay? So the way you would actually do it is you would start with 3 fingers, the pointer, thumb, and middle finger, and hold it in the palm of the hand like this. You would take a couple of deep cleansing breaths. So I'm going to demonstrate it this way, but if you don't have someone with you and you want to try it with your own one hand, try your middle finger in the center of the palm and just lightly hold your fingers like this while you take a couple of cleansing breaths. So you would inhale and exhale and inhale and exhale. And one more. You have energy centers in the palm of your hand. So this is activating that. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to hold our thumb very lightly, not tight, but a light hold. If you can only reach with one hand, you can take your thumb in the center and lightly hold over that thumb. But for now, I'm just going to hold it this way for the proper protocol and just going to relax. The thumb represents the lung with our energy meridians. So let's inhale and exhale, thinking about that, our lung energy, the breath of life. Inhale and exhale. Now, when I do this, I actually like to spend at least a minute on each finger, and it's deeply relaxing when you do that. And you may start to yawn, and that just means everything's relaxing and connecting. So now I'm going to gently go over to my 4th finger, and I'm going to hold my 4th finger very lightly and just rest my hand. If it's just one hand, place that 4th finger in your palm and just make sure your other fingers are touching, and just lightly place it over that. So I'm going to hold the 4th finger right now. And this particular finger works with the fight, flight, freeze response. So very good for stress reduction. So we're going to inhale and exhale and inhale. And really let that exhale out through the mouth. And one more time. And exhale. I am now going to move to the 3rd finger. I'm holding it very gently. If you're doing it in one hand, 3rd finger down, other fingers just gently wrapped around. So I'm holding my 3rd finger now. In meridians, this works with the pericardium and the circulatory system. So let's take a few breaths here. And breath moves energy. So this is a good time to relax and just breathe through it. I like this because you can kind of do this anywhere. And now I'm going to move over to the pointer finger, the index finger, and hold that. And again, if it's just one finger, hold it in your palm and rest the others around it. And we'll take a few breaths. This finger works with the large intestine, and it's about letting go. So I'm sure we all have things we need to let go. It's nice to focus on that when we're holding here. And I'm kind of moving through this quickly. I like when you have time to really spend the time with this. And now I'm going to move to the last finger. This represents the heart and the small intestine. And again, if you're doing one hand, just place that one on the palm and gently rest the others over. Work with the energy of the heart here. And that's the protocol. So now we'll just go through the sequence on the other hand, just again, so I won't stay as long on it, but I'm going to take my 3 fingers. I'm going to place it in the palm. If you just only can work by yourself and you don't have the ability with the 2 hands, place your middle finger in the center. And we take a few breaths here. In Jinshin Jitsu, they believe that you can restore a lot of the body's health through the use of the fingers. So now we're going to come to the thumb, which works with the lung meridian again. So we're going to hold that. And if it's just the one hand, just place your thumb here and wrap your fingers around. Well, I'm yawning. So now I'm going to move over to the 4th finger. I'm gently holding it or placing it and just wrapping the fingers around. The time to really focus on your gentle breathing. Remember, this 4th finger governs the fight, flight, freeze response. Now I'm going to move to the middle finger. Very lightly hold. Again, middle finger here, just place the fingers around. But you want that, whatever finger we're working with, you want it to touch the palm. And now I'm going to move to the pointer finger. This works with large intestine again, letting go. And if it's just the one hand, place your fingers around and focus on letting go. And now I'm going to move to the baby finger, wrap my hand there, or place the finger and hold. Just making sure the other 4 fingers are touching while that 5th one is on the palm. Otherwise, I'm holding. And this is focusing on our heart energy. And then you can slowly come off of it. So this is just, again, another form of holding touch. You're holding the fingers gently, and it's a very calming protocol. So I hope that, you were able to learn a few things through this session, and maybe try out a couple of these techniques using the fingers or holding, and seeing how you feel when you do it. And then I'd like to see if you have any questions that I can answer for you.
I'll give people a minute to kind of formulate those, but I wanted to say thank you, Gloria. I know that you've done several other projects for the IFOPA, and to anyone who enjoyed today's session, we will be doing another session on Friday, just like always, but this week it will be a little different, and that Gloria's been so kind as to create actually 2 separate sets of content. So if you like this content and you want to access some more that will sort of build upon what we've discussed today, please do feel free to join us on Friday, and I'll send out the link for that in the reminder or the recap email from today. So with the recording today, you'll get the link for Friday. And I wanted to just say that I'll also send out links to the other things that Gloria has done, because she actually did a series for us about stress busting, I think is what we called it, and empowering and energy. So that's just some of the previous content she's done. That's really amazing ways to build upon this, because one thing about energy medicine that I know Gloria and I have discussed, and that is really important to communicate, is that just doing it once doesn't have nearly the impact as it will as if you do it every day. So just finding little ways to practice this vein of self-care, not just today, but maybe it's every morning or every evening throughout the days coming up. Gloria, there is one question that's come in. Let me grab that. Or Lorena, are you able to ask the question by Annie that's in the chat?
Sure. So Annie is asking, where can we find information about what each finger works on, and what it's related to?
Okay. If you Google Jin Shin Jitsu, they will show you they're working on different emotions, and each finger corresponds to a particular emotion. I discussed the meridians, which is different. They also work with emotions, but in Jin Shin Jitsu, you may see the emotions listed a little bit differently. And they have some very nice maps of the hand showing the emotion for each finger. And that's JINSHIN JYUTSU.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca, for typing that in the chat. I did not think to do that, but I had one question, Gloria, that I kind of wanted to add. And I know this is a little different from what we've talked about today, but something that I don't think we discussed in the planning for the session that I just love to get your thoughts on. So for some of our community members, it may be difficult to avoid touch from others because they rely on caregivers to help them with many things. And I know sometimes when you're not wanting touch from others, it can be hard to find that touch. I don't want to say pleasant, but that sometimes there can just be some negative energy coming from that touch. So do you have any advice for people who need a lot of kind of physical support, or who receive a lot of touch from other people, but maybe aren't associating that as positively as
Yes, and I've heard that from clients, especially when it's parents that are wanting to help and to touch them, and they're, especially as they become teenagers or they start to get a little bit older, it's kind of like, everybody's all over me, just get away from me. And it's not a personal thing. It has nothing to do with the loving touch that people are trying to give to the person receiving it. But it can be an overload. As I mentioned earlier, that with anybody with a challenge, a lot of times their senses are more increased than others may be. Somebody that's in a wheelchair will have heightened perceptual abilities or intuitiveness. And so their sense of touch, just like I said with children with autism, felt it several feet away. It can be a lot and very intimidating. So if you're a caregiver or a parent, I would say to you to be mindful and ask, like, if I do energy work, I always have to ask the permission of the person if it's okay if I touch them. Even if it's helping, I know you have to lift and do a lot of things throughout the day, but it can disturb the energy field around the person, okay? And it can come off as feeling negative when it shouldn't be. So if there's any way that you can ask the permission, and for the person who is receiving all of this to be able to voice it in a way towards somebody, can you give me a minute? I just want to take a minute before you come in and help me do this task or whatever it is. That's what I would say, is give me a minute to get myself together, and then I would like you to come in and do it. That's what I have seen from some people, so they can kind of organize themselves a little bit, maybe do a couple of breaths, maybe go into a feeling of intention that, yeah, it stinks having to have this done all day long and throughout the day. Nobody can understand this unless you're going through it yourself, but I know they're trying to help. So I'm going to get myself together, breathe through this, maybe hold your fingers to relax yourself a little bit. And then, as we talked about that pointer finger, let go and try to let go. That's the best advice that I would give for that, because that is a very difficult thing. And I'm glad you brought that up, Hope, because I didn't even think about that, but I have heard that from clients. And so, again, when I had fibromyalgia and it was so painful to touch, I just had a hummingbird at my window. How beautiful is that? But anyway, so painful that, somebody would just go like this, and, my body would just jerk from it. So I'm very conscious of that myself from having gone through that, but most people are not. And so maybe understanding that it's just the awareness, that people just don't have that awareness of how it affects you. And if somebody's in a bad mood, and I have a daughter who's a massage therapist, the person that's laying on the table can feel it very, very strongly, so any way that if you're working with someone, you can try to clear yourself before you go over to them, thinking a happy thought, just releasing something. And through the videos, like Hope said, I'm thinking Stress said, Hope said, there are breaths and things that you can do to release the stress that you as a caregiver have, because you have an enormous job as well. And so being able to release that shifts your energy that comes into contact with who you're working with. It makes a big difference.